Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching. The channel's called Ratchet. My name's Andrew, and on this episode of my GT40 restoration, we get stuck into the interior. Run the title. Welcome to the channel if you're new. If you're not, thank you for tuning back in for yet another episode. Like I've said, on this instalment, I'm going to be diving into the interior, trying to get that knocked into shape. So I've got a carpet set to make, and more importantly, I've got some seats to cut up and create the vision that I've got for these bucket seats on the inside of the car. So I'm excited about showing you all of the progress along the way in relation to that. As always, please hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment below. It's always really great hearing what you guys have got to think about the project, and it keeps my enthusiasm levels up as well, so that's always appreciated. You can follow me on Instagram, Ratchet GT40, for all of the latest build photos that I do post on there. So I think that pretty much covers everything. Let's crack on with the video. It's always been on my want list to have quite a plush carpet set. Ignoring the fact that everywhere else is bare aluminium, for some reason I've become quite fixated in having quite a luxurious deep pile carpet. So that left me with one thing to do, and pretty much the standard thing that anyone does when building a kit car, and that's to buy your own carpet and then cut it up and fit it yourself. Now, after a bit of internet research, I found a company called Coverdale. I'll put their link in the description below. I like the look of the company, so I emailed them for 3 different grade swatches of black carpet. I wanted to go for black. I like dark interiors. They increase in cost from, I think, £25, £45 and £65 per linear metre, and they're 1.5 metres wide. Now, in true man logic fashion, I talked myself into the fact that I needed the most expensive carpet that they did. So I placed an order for a couple of square metres of the Kensington. Probably 3 or 4 days later, the carpet turned up, and I will, show you what it looks like in a short while. So once I started looking at the interior and the actual rear portion of the centre tunnel, it was previously made up of 5 separate flat aluminium panels that were either screwed or riveted into place. Now, it worked out that I was basically going to have to wait until the entire car was reassembled before I could trim this area in the carpet, and I didn't like that idea. So what I did was make the decision to make this one piece rear tunnel cover removable, so I could A, get it trimmed up, and B, have it completely removable should I need full access to the handbrake adjusters, the brake lines, the fire suppression lines, etc. So now, with the 2 centre tunnel pieces being completely removable, it now gives me full access to everything that runs within there. Once I was happy with the fit, it was then time to get it trimmed in the new carpet, so I cut myself a piece, slightly oversized around all the edges, and started applying the contact adhesive to both surfaces, waiting until they were basically touch dry until I brought them together, which forms a nice, strong, permanent bond between the 2 faces. Working my way around some of the detailed little edges and recesses that need to be cut out and made good, just so it fitted in the car really nice and tightly. Going back quite some time at the start of this build, when it was just going to be an interior makeover, I had picked up some chip foam, you see, there. Now this is just bought on a roll and then easily cut to pattern with a pair of scissors. And it was always my intention to use this on the underside of whatever carpet I did end up buying to create, that real sort of depth and thick plush feeling of carpet that I was after. So what I have done is started cutting down the chip foam and laying it in between the seat runners and the main chassis rail on the inside of the car. You will also see what I've done already, and that is trim the centre console pieces in the new carpet, and also, because how it needs to be done in terms of process and steps, I have carpeted the main crossbar that runs along the inside of the car. So after getting the 2 centre console pieces trimmed, it dawned on me that to get a quality finish on the rest of the carpet, I really needed to buy myself some decent carpet shears or some carpet scissors, whatever you want to call them, because I trimmed up the center console was using just a pair of kitchen scissors and a pair of wallpaper scissors, and they didn't really cut the mustard. So what I did do was pick up myself, I think these are 16 quid or so from Amazon, and they are proper upholstery shears, and they come with a very nifty little small shear for getting into very tight spots, which has been of real use when trimming this car. And the scissors are incredibly robust, super strong, incredibly sharp, and they have glided through this chip foam and also the carpet like butter, and they leave a really great crisp sharp edge to the carpet as well. So once I'd got them roughly cut to size, I was then able to work around just finalising the pattern necessary to enable it to have a really good finish within the car. Although quite difficult to make out, with the initial test fit of this carpet, it's shaping up nicely and I can move on to the next stage. And that's using a spray adhesive to bond the chip foam to the underside of the carpet. So this is basically the finished look that I was striving for from the outset. Now the chip foam has been bonded to the top layer of carpet and tied it all together, it just feels like a real nice plush floor mat, for want of a better word. You can see on the back side here where it steps up in the various layers of foam and carpet to dress up and around the centre console. And also the carpet overlaps the foam very slightly, which allows me to, when fitted into the car, tuck the carpet down into the edge where it abuts against the aluminium panelling. So it just makes a real nice sort of tidy edge, and you don't see any of the frayed carpet strands that you might pick up over time on an unbound length of carpet like this. Onto the final stages now. I needed to cut out some small areas of the carpet where it was covering over the seat bolt rivnuts. Using a mallet, I created an indent in the back side of the carpet. So when I removed it from the car and took it over to the bench, I could see the small circular indents of the rivnuts, so I knew exactly where to snip around to make the holes in the carpet as nice and as tight as possible. And lastly, onto the final fit. The 4 pieces of carpet fit in beautifully. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. So when it does go in for the very last time, you know, all it will need now is a good hoover, and that is a very good job jobbed. So onto the seats. I picked these up off of Facebook Marketplace. There is a guy on there that manufactures these seats. I can't remember exactly what I paid, but it wasn't a fortune. I didn't want to spend much because I knew I was going to be chopping them up and creating the one-off seats that I had in my mind's eye. So once I got them out of the loft space, I stripped off the U-channel trim that had been put around the perimeter of the fiberglass and around the seatbelt harnesses in readiness for the next stage. I'd already cut down one seat, which I spent quite a lot of time messing around with the top curve of the seat until I'd created a shape that I was happy with. So moving on to this second seat, I was able to take a cardboard template and transfer that over to the uncut seat, so I was able to produce 2 identical matching curves without spending hours trying to eye each one through to get a match. Quite some time ago, I'd actually made these seat brackets because the previous brackets had been made for the old seats, which are long gone. I bought these new seats, wanted to get the brackets knocked into shape so there wasn't any drilling necessary into my freshly painted chassis. So these brackets are made out of 2mm stainless steel. Nothing groundbreaking about them. They follow the curved contour around the side bolsters of the seats, which is quite nice, and then just bolt very simply to the 2 cross braces that I welded in to the floor, and they hold the seat super securely. Being quite tall myself, I was always conscious that A, I wanted to get a comfy seating position, and B, also have the seats recline back at an angle which meant I wasn't going to be decapitating myself every time I closed the door. So I was very conscious of those two things when angling these seats. Now, for me personally, they fit an absolute dream. They feel very comfortable. They give me good support underneath the front of my thighs where the previous seat didn't. Now, the seats actually came with fixings in the bottom of the base, and I didn't want to use that method. So what I did was actually drill 8 riv nut fixings into the side bolsters, as you can see where my brackets mount to. So that gave me much easier access to all of the nuts and hardware necessary to get these seats in and out of the car nice and easy. I'll be perfectly honest with you, these seats are rough. I didn't quite realise how rough they were. This passenger side one is worse than the driver's side. Now, when I went to pick up the seats, they were bubble wrapped up with my name stuck on the side of them. I brought them home, stuck them up in the loft, and didn't really think any more about them until obviously now that I'm working on them. Whatever I did pay for them, it was too much. But on the flip side of that, because they were cheap and they're rough, I don't feel bad in any way, shape or form about cutting them up and really making them my own design. You know, if I bought some Tillet seats, for example, I wouldn't have touched them in at all. You know, they would have just gone in the car as they are. So yeah, like I say, because these are rough, you know, just chop them up as much as I want, which sort of leads me on to the second phase of this seat redesign. Now, obviously cutting off the high back was the first one. Now I've got them sat in the car. There's a few little awkward lines that I don't like, how they sort of line through with everything else around the interior, and I will go on to explain that in a bit more detail next. But yeah, safe to say these aren't finished going under the knife just yet. So looking back over at the driver's side, you'll see that I've added a masking tape line. Everything above that taped edge will be cut off, and then that will allow the seat side bolster to run parallel with the side sill. So it's a minute detail, but something that always ends up being extremely important to me to get right. So let's get the seat out and get that chopped off, put it back in the car and see if it has achieved what I wanted it to. Boom, done. And never to be noticed by anyone else but me. Now the seats are cut to a shape that I'm happy with, I need to decide how far down the road I'm going to go in terms of refinishing them. Certainly at this stage, I'm going to pick up some rubber U-channel trim to run around the perimeter edge of the seats. You may have seen on the driver's side, I had a piece that was actually too short that I did partially run around just to see what look it did give to the edge of the seat. And it's one that I do like the look of. So now I'm going to buy sufficient trim and do both seats and also the harness cutouts just to finish those exposed fiberglass edges. If I do decide to refinish the seats any further, then obviously I'll make a call on that before fitting those trims. But I must admit, I don't think I'm going to at this stage. You might be sitting there thinking, why don't you put some neoprene pads for some backside cushioning? I have got some here, which I cut into a few templates and gave it a little test out. To be honest, it didn't really give much more comfort to the seat. Plus, I like the completely bare fiberglass seat as it looks at the moment. I basically want to drive the car just to see if it is ridiculously uncomfortable before, yeah, I make that call on trying to make them more comfy. So I have thought about it. I'm sure some of you are thinking about why I haven't done it, and obviously there's the reason. And I think that basically wraps up this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've certainly felt like I've achieved a lot. You know, the interior has gone from bare to now being nicely carpeted out with a couple of seats plonked in it. So it feels like a real nice step forwards. Coming up in the next episode, not decided yet. There's lots of other things that I've got going on in the background. I've got the headlight and fog light covers to fit. I might chuck on the suspension. Who knows? Let's see where the wind takes me. So up until the next episode, I will catch you next time.